All right, very good. We are ready. Tricarico, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here, both of you. Since we don't have quorum, there's not a whole lot we'll be able to work on, but I am interested in hearing from Gretchen, her update on what the city is currently doing. And then hopefully we can maybe share that via email with the rest of the group to give them some time to think about it. We have the introduction and we have the glossary of terms from Dr. Brown. Thank you so much. And then based on Gretchen's update, we'll decide what we're moving forward with from there, as well as, well, I guess we can't decide anything, but we can postulate about things that we might want to move forward with from there. So should we do an introduction since it's a formal meeting, Gretchen?
You certainly can. That wouldn't hurt in case we have any viewers wanting to know who's here. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm Tricarico. I'm technically the chair of this, and I'm on the Human Rights Commission. My pronouns are they, them. Dr. Brown, would you like to go next?
Sure, yes. Thank you for introducing me. First name is Irvin. I go by the pronouns he and him. I am a volunteer in Ward 5 in the beautiful city of Salem.
Very good. And hi, everyone. My name is Gretchen, and I'm staff to the commission, part of the Mayor and City Manager's Office staff team, and my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. Okay, so let me get into our agenda. Do we have any public comments?
I did not receive any, no.
Okay.
No one's with us tonight.
Okay, so we can approve minutes, right? Because we don't have quorum. Okay, so next is you. Let us know what you have for the upcoming city leadership training.
Yeah, thank you. There are 2 sessions coming up, December 2nd and December 9th, that are titled Learning Opportunities. They're with Dr. Johnny Lake. Dr. Lake is actually a former member of the Human Rights Commission back in the day. He used to be a resident of Salem and more recently is a resident of Eugene. And you can find a little bit more about Dr. Lake at drjonnylake.org. Thought I would mention that. But these are going to be learning opportunities. The council requested this opportunity and asked that it be for the current members of City Council and the mayor, as well as for our incoming members of City Council. We have 3 new members of City Council that will become councilors January 1, but they would be a part of this training. And then also the members of our city's leadership team, which includes the directors of each of the departments of the city and the city manager, and then 2 of us out of the mayor and city manager's office. I've been on the small team that's been working with Dr. Lake to prepare. And so again, there's 2 sessions coming up, and the first section is going to include good discussion about assumptions, language, definitions, and unpacking those definitions in very practical terms to what do they mean for you? What do they mean in your daily life? What do they mean in your organizations in practice? How are the terms represented? And really unpack them. There's work around identity of oneself as well as of others and of the team, kind of the construct of identity. Recognizing that there's a lot of complexity within identity, and so sort of working with the construct of identity. Looking broadly, I asked about identities included in the conversation, and it's meant to be inclusive of the variety of identities that we pay attention to at the Human Rights Commission. It's race, it's national origin, it's age, it's gender, it's all of those elements of identity that go into it. I think there's hope for work in self-knowledge, kind of turning the mirror on oneself in participation. And then session 2 would flow out of session 1. Dr. Lake spoke about his value of creating a dialogue and then reflecting on what comes out of the dialogue in session 1 to build the plan for session 2. There's broader hope that the work would inform the city's strategic plan update. The city right now is going through an update to its strategic plan. And so the hope is that coming out of these 2 learning opportunities, there would be the ability for council to reflect on the learning and then carry that forward into the strategic planning conversations. There's also plan within the city to continue to meet and dialogue and then see what outgrowths come from this discussion and where it should lead. Let's see. Yeah, I think that kind of concludes the information that I have. I would say that I visited a bit with Dr. Lake about my work. You know, he got a kick out of remembering his experience on the Human Rights Commission, and we were talking about our conversations, and he said, well, be sure to ask them, you know, if there's anything in particular that they'd like to see or ask, you know, or anything they'd like me to include. So I certainly can convey your thoughts to Dr. Lake as he prepares for these conversations. But yeah, I think that concludes my update. The first gathering is December 2nd, and the second one is December 9th.
Question, Gretchen? So I think, Chair Tricarico, I think you mentioned this maybe 2 meetings ago about the upcoming sessions and what they will look like. So Gretchen, thank you for sharing what they look like. Really appreciate that. But also, you had mentioned about the possibility of maybe participating in those. Is that still an option for people on this team, or have you already reached the max level of participants?
They've reached the max level, and I think they want to keep it. They want to keep it and with that group at this time for the opportunity to really be able to focus in and learn and share questions. There are teams that work together very closely, and so yeah, they're gonna, for these 2, going to hold it to the participants that they have.
Got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate you just giving us clarification on that and working with Dr. Lake. I know him, and so that's just good report. So I think I'm going to definitely reach out to him this week and just to say hello, because I haven't seen him, well, since last year. Matter of fact, we were at an NAACP event in Eugene, and so we did some workshops there together. So I'll be sure to reach out to him this week.
Thank you. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super great to hear that you already know Dr. Lake. That's awesome. Super relieved. So yes, I'm super glad to hear you'll be reaching, because that was my thought too, is like, how can I get a hold of this person? I was wondering if we maybe you'll be able to find this out, Dr. Brown, if we could get a peek at what that glossary looks like to compare it to the one that we have and make sure that, you know, again, what we have is kind of in alignment so that when we present it with our materials, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, if there's something included in ours and not included in his, it might be nice to add some extra explanation or some extra detail, and just make sure that, yeah, everything is in alignment. Yeah. And I was wondering if you could tell me, and maybe you can't off the top of your head, but what does the diversity of that group look like that's going to be doing these sessions? Because there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is, you know, I worry about a bunch of people who are very, very similar, making decisions about the city without diverse audiences there. And I also know that when, you know, middle-aged, older, mostly male white folks are first presented in this work, they cannot be willing to have conversations if there's people in the room they're worried about offending or upsetting. And I wouldn't want, like, my presence, for example, to hinder really important conversation that needs to happen.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I don't want there to be like not a lot of diversity when we're talking about these. So I'm kind of torn between the two, if that makes sense. So I'm curious what that looks like.
Well, I'm a little bit torn too, and hopefully we can, be re-sewed back together. The first thing I want to say is that the glossary of terms that we're using, and Gretchen and Chicago, I can definitely go back. I can go back and fill in the missing words, because I purposely, I have definitions for those, but I purposely wanted other people to contribute, where it wasn't just, okay, Urban is doing all of this and it's his thing versus the collective, spirit of all of us working together. So I can definitely go back and work on that if that's what you would like me to do. When I think about Dr. Lake's glossary, I can definitely ask him about his terms. Some of these are going to be very, very similar, meaning that first day on December the 2nd, I don't know what the outline will be, but I know I've done, sessions where typically that first day is really discussing who's in the room. And that's a big chunk, because I think Gretchen said that these are teams that are coming together. And so what they try to do in these sessions is identify who's in the room. And as you identify who's in the room, you automatically identify who you are. So you lead that first day with race. And so that can be touchy-feely, just so you know, it can be very touchy-feely. It can be very uncomfortable for some people. I don't know the demographics of our teams here in Salem area. I can assume, and that's probably not wise. At the same time, if the majority of the leadership in the Salem area, especially for the city, if it's the dominant voice, which is white, it's going to be challenging. There's going to be some rough spots in that, because I have yet to see a presentation or a session to where you knock the ball out of the ballpark, if that makes sense. And so, yes, I can definitely touch base with him just to kind of see what his terms look like. And I can also go back and add hours. I can do that whenever you would like me to, as we kind of move forward.
I think go ahead, Dr. Sorry.
I would love to see people contribute to what you added. I don't want you to have to do it all. I also don't know realistically if I'm going to get a lot of input from the other folks. I mean, I'm trying to be gracious of where people are at right now with their capacity. So I would say let's do one more reminder and encourage people to, hey, just put in your perspective. It's not written in stone. This is very much a living document. And then we can go from there, because I don't want to dump this all on you. You've already done a lot, and I really appreciate it. Yeah, go ahead, Gretchen.
Well, I want to clarify what you just said, because that might actually remove a barrier for some. People may be worried that they don't have, quote unquote, the correct definition. But you just said something really accessible about put it in your own terms. It sounds like you might be interested in have people share what they think those terms mean, and that might be something to work from. Would you like me to invite that as part of the reminder?
Yes.
Okay, great.
I think that's huge, Gretchen, because and I don't know how Dr. Lake is going to do his sessions, typically there are always words that we use quite frequently in our conversations. Like, we always talk about race, but we're not exactly sure how to define race. We're always talking about racism. We're not exactly sure how to define racism. We're always talking about being prejudiced. So we use a lot of these words or biases. We use them interchangeably, and they're all very, very different. So it would be great if the rest of our team could just put their thoughts of what those words look like, and then we can come back and we can balance them off of research. We can use a research term word that's being used, obviously, from scholars to universities and whatnot, but we can also put an example along with the particular term.
Sounds good.
Because some people may not know. I mean, for example, people like to use the word discrimination and then prejudice. That's synonymously the same, and they're very, very different. And so I can do whatever we think the team wants to do. So I'm very flexible.
That's awesome. I did come across a document that defines
Uh-oh.
Did
Gretchen, you froze for a second there.
Okay, she's still frozen on my end. She frozen on yours too?
Yeah. Bummer.
Yeah, she's frozen. Maybe it'll click back on in a minute.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't do that thing where then she starts talking really, really fast and then you have to try and follow it. I hate that.
Yeah. Oh, she's stuck for a long time.
Yeah. Let me see if I can message her.
And
Oh, she came back for a second.
Sorry, Gretchen. I don't know what happened there, but you froze and we lost everything you said.
Yeah, we did.
I was experiencing the same thing. All of a sudden, your pictures were static.
Okay.
And then it dropped. I was sharing that I had come across a document that a commissioner had written a couple of years ago that defined terms related to gender and sexuality. And I wondered if that would be helpful. I can share it for you as background.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I wanted to go back to Tricarico's, your questions. I don't think any decision, you were talking about decisions being made, and I don't believe decisions would be made in the learning opportunities. I think the learning opportunity agendas are really focused on just that, like the opportunity to, in a vulnerable way, express questions, explore areas of confusion, and really learn. But then next would be further later in the months like in January, would be opportunities to be working on the strategic plan. And the idea is that having this in December would then turn around and inform strategic planning work. And the strategic planning process has a lot of input pieces and is a public experience. So I don't know if that's responsive.
Yeah. So would the formulation of the strategic plan where we could be encouraging them to adopt the use of the equity lens? Is that where that would go?
Yeah, probably. I would need to think about that. I was thinking that that recommendation would be made to our elected officials as well as to staff leadership that are going to be working with staff on carrying out the ideas that come through this training. And I don't see why it couldn't move forward in the strategic planning process. Yes.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be, do we want to have like a solid strategic plan available, or do we want to simply make the do we want to have a solid equity lens available, or do we want to simply make the recommendation that unequity lens is included? Because again, balancing the realistic abilities of what we can accomplish by January and where the council and the leadership is going to be in January after a couple sessions, like what's realistically the best way to actually get this in there, you know?
Yeah, and I'm going to defer to you both for the answer, but by way of staff support to that question, to me, the more you get at what it would look like and how it would be used, I think the more helpful it could be. And there's some good nuggets in your September 16th meeting notes. Like I had written down, people felt a glossary of terms is really critical. For example, the Multnomah County 5 Ps tool is digestible, accessible, asks clear and understandable questions. The Destry de Towers piece helps illustrate key things about what's to be gained with equity. It looks like there's a value of engagement, and there might be some themes in that could come with, like if you recommended adoption of an equity lens tool, you could be pulling from those conversations to help inform it. I might also add real quick, you'd asked about the diversity of the group, and honestly, I don't have a formal survey instrument to completely answer your question. And so you're just going off of my own observations. I think there's probably roughly 19 people. There's 9 elected officials and approximately 10 people who are on the city's leadership team. And I'm thinking about who I know on the groups, and I'm thinking, well, we have one person from Puerto Rico, we have one person from the country of India, we have someone who's an islander, Pacific Islander. What else? What am I? Somebody who's Latino. many who were from the dominant culture. I'm trying to think of the makeup, but that's just my own impressions, and that's never good data.
Sure.
I would, and Gretchen, just to respond to something you said about the equity lens, and Chakerico, I would love your input on this too. I think if we were to work on what an equity lens looks like, feels like, and sounds like, I think our team can present that to you, Gretchen, and you can bring that forward. What I don't think is going to happen is this. I do not think that on those sessions for December the 2nd and the 9th with Dr. Lake, that team is not going to come out recognizing that they need to have an equity lens. Because that work that I'm assuming this, that work that Dr. Lake is going to be doing, I think it's going to be an internal perspective. Because, and that's the hard work. The hard work is my own personal journey when it comes to equity for everyone. And so if Dr. Lake if Dr. Lake is going to push a group of leaders to look, introspectively, it would be left up to us in this team to give them a lens that they can use externally when it comes to policy and procedure.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree too. And that's why I'm trying to figure out how quickly we can get something together. If they are looking at their strategic plan in January and February, what can we get in their hands by then? Right? What can we physically give them? We've got our intro, we've got our glossary, that can be fine-tuned by then, no problem. I am hesitant to try to write something from scratch because of my limited expertise. I'm wondering if we would pick like a top 2 or 3 lenses that are already in place to recommend that they use, or recommend that they emulate with maybe minor tweaks to Salem, because someone recently reminded me, Salem's a lot different than maybe Chicago, and so our needs are going to be different. We can't just take what they're using in Chicago and copy and paste it, right? So I think realistically, I'm thinking what we could accomplish between now and then would be finalizing that glossary of terms. I think the intro is great too, but I'd love to get the other folks' perspective on that if there's anything else they want to include. And then a recommendation of like top 2 or 3 lenses we think would work for the city of Salem. Any modifications that we need to do. And then our proposal would be that the city adopts a lens, either one outlined here or something similar, to be using as part of their strategic plan. But
okay. Yeah, I really like that.
Okay, I was going to ask your experience in, have you recommended a lens or helped a company or someone create a lens? And I feel like that's a very long process that we just don't have the time to do.
Well, the first answer to your question is yes. I have worked on creating equity lenses with other organizations and school districts, even with the state. And so I've done in the past, totally ready and available to help now in this process. I can also say that when it comes to an equity lens, it does need to be tailor fit or tailor made to us. And so although we can pull things from Chicago, Portland, you name it, we can pull all of those things. But at the end of the day, the equity lens really is going to be just a series of questions that here's a good example. It's going to be a series of questions. Let's just say that, Gretchen is responsible for hiring a new person in her office. And let's just say that the application process that she is using, let's say that the application process has yet to be looked at through an equity lens. For example, when someone goes on an application process and they go to ethnicity, they have to check the box, correct? When they check the box, please tell me in your own mind, in your own memory of things in the past, which ethnicity do you think is typically the first one that people see on the application? Which one? You have an idea?
White.
White, exactly. So, and I just saw this the other day for something here in the city. If white is the first ethnicity you see, that would be proof that an equity lens was not used to create that application. Because by default, alphabetically, white should be the last one chosen, and African American, Black, would be the first one. And so that's just an example that an equity lens would be a series of questions of how we would look at things differently, write things differently, and really change the outcome. And I think Carrico, you said this in the past. It really changes the trajectory and the scope of what we want to do. And so again, it's a series of questions. And like I said, I am more than willing to do whatever that's best for the team. So, I mean, definitely count me in.
Okay. So that being said, I would love to hear from our other members. What are the questions that you wish the city would have asked when you were interacting with them for whatever reason? Maybe you were applying for something, maybe when you were applying to be on this council, you know, maybe when they were interacting, you know, what are the kinds of equity questions you wish people were asking themselves as they did this work? Because I think there's a lot of great questions out there, but when we talk about it being tailor-made, you know, the people in this group are people who are living and working in Salem, and specifically representing important communities, representing those who care about human rights. So I'd love to hear from their experiences.
Yeah.
You know, what are the kinds of questions you wish were asked? And then that, I think, would be a great starting point for us to start listing those questions, and that can be our topic of conversation next time to really get this formalized and finalized.
I agree.
Cool. Okay. Let me go back to our thing. So it sounds like that's really our plan at this point, is get feedback on the intro, individual folks' definitions in their own words, and questions they wish the city would ask when doing whatever city business they want to provide their input on. So that when we next meet, we could kind of take a look at all that stuff and start fine tuning it.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we can have something prepared for their strategic plan in the next year.
Hey, Gretchen, is there a deadline that would be appropriate that we give to the team members? Say, hey, could you please respond with your input on these terms or even questions? I'm gonna throw out a date. Let's just say December the 11th. Is that possible, or are we asking too much?
No, I would defer to Tricarico as a member of the group, but I don't think that's asking too much. It seems like you want to give some time to be reasonable and respectful, but when you allow tons of time, it can somehow get lost and set aside. So like December 11th feels like a good sweet spot in my view.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because I don't want to just leave it out there. I want to keep this going.
Yeah.
So if we can have that back by the 11th, and then we could have another meeting the following week.
Yeah.
Then we could be talking about that. And then that way, when we meet again in January, it would really be finalizing.
Yes.
You know, and being ready for their meeting.
Yes. And Tricarico, if we choose the 11th, and I'm just looking at the calendar, December, that's 2 weeks away, which is good. And that's on a Friday. And so if the team got back to us their input, and Gretchen, whatever you at Tricarico want to send me, I could go then and just add more to what's not been done. I mean, let's say we get all the glossary terms done. Let's say there are still 5 outstanding. If there's still 5 outstanding, I would love to go ahead and just add those before we all come back together again, because at least that project would be complete.
Yeah,
I wouldn't mind doing that.
Great.
Thank you.
So great. Thank you so much. Yes, 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 yes. So yes.
Would you like to set a time around your calendars for this group to meet again in kind of late-ish December after Dr. Brown has time to do that work, but before the next Human Rights Commission meeting would be January 5th. And so I wonder if you're trying to hit a spot in between December 11th and January 5th to complete your work group work, because then you can turn a recommendation over to the full Human Rights Commission on January 5th, which would then be handed to the city.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you what I can do. If the team gets it back to us by the 11th, I can turn around and give everything back to you two by Monday, the 28th.
Okay.
If that would help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that way we kind of get away from the whole week of Christmas and other holidays, whatever people want to, whatever their religious preference is. But that gives us 2 weeks after the team has given us anything. But it gives me time also to give something back to you on the 28th, and you still got over a week before the HRC team meets.
Yeah, so could we have a survey to the rest of the team of what their availability is the week of the 28th?
Yeah.
So we can look at that final document and have that ready for proposal?
Yes, so I will doodle poll survey for availability the week of the 28th.
Yes.
While I have the two of you, are there evenings that week that are terrible for you?
No.
I'm completely open to Carrico. The only hiccup could be for some people is that Friday is the 1st. But again, I don't think people are going to be out there having New Year's Day party, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I would avoid a meeting on a Friday night for a variety of reasons, but it being the new year, definitely take the cake. So probably not that day, but I don't really have anything planned. I'm covering for a coworker in December, so I'm pretty much stuck not taking any vacation, nor do I have anywhere I could go. So I'm pretty open that week. So it looks good for me. And let's just hope that we can find a day where the rest of the team can all meet and get them all here. I might try to send out some reminders or something, because I know everybody's busy, but I do want to get this done before that strategic plan is going, so we really have something to hand over.
Yeah.
Very good. I like it. I think we got a good plan. Nice work.
Okay, cool. Well, Dr. Brown, thank you again for all of your time and willingness to help us with this. It's been absolutely amazing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no worries at all. Like I've told Gretchen, like I don't mind volunteering and helping out because it's a team of it. It's a collaborative spirit, and as long as we can come together, sit at the table and work on some things, I am all for it. So count me in.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So I will make sure that I follow my own advice and get my definitions in there and my questions. And then hopefully we'll get some good stuff from the rest of the team and get something going in about a month. Right.
And I am going to reach out to Dr. Lake tomorrow.
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Let me know how that goes. I'm honestly super stoked that you know him, because that sounds great. It's always just when someone's coming in and you're like, who is this person and what are they going to say?
It's so funny because when when Gretchen was first sharing with us, feels like years ago now, but when she was sharing with us that there was a team of people coming in, my mind began to think like, okay, who are they bringing? Are they bringing someone, from Florida, Washington State? Because good people do work there too, but it's always different when you bring someone out of state because they leave and you're stuck here working on your own kind of journey. But now that I know it's Johnny, Dr. Lake down the street, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm just call him up tomorrow and see what this is all about.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
And the added benefit of his former membership or of being a commissioner with human rights, he gets our structure.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
That's a nice added bonus.
Small world.
Right. Cool. Well, is there anything else, September remarks and announcements that we need to cover?
I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, both of you. I'm looking forward to getting this finalized, and I hope you have a wonderful long weekend, if not Thanksgiving, depending on what you celebrate.
Thank you. You too. You guys be well and take care.
Thank you both. Good to talk to you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.